My name is Salim, for the people who don't know me. I'm the director of Smartlight, and sharing our workshop today is Rahib. Rahib is a qualified accountant, and he will explain about his background. But the session today is all about Excel. We use a number of programs, I'm sure, in our everyday lives, and I've always found that Excel is one of those that I need to know more and more of. And the more I learn about it, I keep saying to myself, I wish I'd learned this earlier, because it's a very, very powerful tool, especially if you're trying to work with figures and data. And this is really, really helpful in the respect that you can actually do much more than just having a set of figures in front of you. And what we'll go through today, Rahib will be able to show you how you can develop your understanding on how to play about with those figures and make them more presentable on screen, because people learn in different ways. I certainly, if I see a sheet full of figures, I get a bit bored. But if I see those figures demonstrated in a different format, such as a chart or such as a graph or anything like that, it becomes a bit more exciting. So without much further ado, I'm going to hand over to Rahib, who will take over the show. And what we do encourage is try and think back of challenges you have with Excel, or everyday challenges, or just things that you might want to learn. So as Rahib goes through, he's got structure he will cover today. You have got the chat panel. Enter things into the chat at any stage. Whether Rahib's covered it or not, we'll try and still cover it for you. So don't be shy. If you've got questions, put them into the chat, even when the presentation's going on, and then we'll try and get back to you. So over to you now, Rahib.
Thank you, Salim. Morning, everyone. I hope everyone's doing great. And I'm Rahib. I'm sure you remember me from yesterday and a call from before as well. I'm the director at RA Tax, and I've been in accountancy for almost 8 years now. So I've spent a lot of chunk of my time in this field, and I have experienced different positions and different workforces and different clients all over the place, and they have varied from small to large businesses. So that does give me a very interesting look into businesses to identify what are the weaknesses and what are the drawbacks of businesses. Anywho, I wouldn't bore you much with my details, and I'll start with Excel today, because I don't want to drag on the time today. So as you can see, this is an Excel program I'm opening up. It's Microsoft Excel 2019, and it's very similar to Office 365 as well. When you open up Excel, it's gonna basically bring you to this section or a new section that will ask you whether you want to open up a blank book or you want to use a pre-created template. You can use templates. Most of them are provided by Microsoft, but some of them are provided by freelancers, and I would recommend you to use the Microsoft one just in case, because the freelancer ones are not verified by Microsoft and they can contain some viruses or malwares. Just in case, just to be on the safe side, every time scan your PC if you download a new template, just to be on the safe side. Anyhow, we're not gonna jump onto a template today. We're gonna work on a blank workbook so that I can show you how you start from scratch, instead of going into a pre-filled and pre-made workbook out of which you won't know how to start or how to edit it in that sense. But let's start with a blank one. Okay. As you can see, this is a workbook. A workbook in an Excel is a whole file. And inside a workbook, you have sheets at the bottom. These are called worksheets. So you can create more worksheets, as many as you want in a workbook, and it can have unlimited number of workbooks. But please, yeah, do bear in mind, the bigger your workbook is, the heavier it gets, and your PC will work harder to analyze that data and that file, because at the end of the day, the bigger the file is, the more data it will have. Anywho, this is a blank new work page in a workbook that I've created. Now, these are called cells, and in these cells, you're going to input data. I'm sure everyone of you is aware. You can input text, numbers, anything onto these cells, and then obviously you would need to format them accordingly, but I'm going to show you that when you go across. The other things are, this is a column and this is a row in Excel. So these things do come in handy, and you would need to know when you're discussing a column or a row. Let's take an example. Let's say if I wanted to tell somebody a data that was located in this cell that I've highlighted, then in order to tell that person which cell I'm pointing at, I would say it's F16. You can see it corresponds to 16 on the left-hand side for the row, and it's the column F. So F16 is going to be this cell. That's how we highlight and identify which cells we're talking about and which cells maybe we need to edit or add information or whatever we're doing. That's how we're going to identify cells. Now, when we input data into cells, let's say name, telephone. Okay, as you can see, this telephone is not fitting completely into this cell. Now I have a few options over here. What I can do is I want to keep this word in this cell all alone. I can either drag this column by left clicking it and dragging it to the right. As you can see, it's increased its size, and now the telephone comes automatically in the whole box. But let's say I don't want to do that. I'm going to double click on this and it will come enough close that it just wraps up the whole text. But let's say I don't want to increase the column of D, yet I want to make sure this word fits in here. When you see on the top bar, the ribbon, you're going to see a section called alignment over here, and there's a button called wrap text. When you click on wrap text, it basically fills the cell with the text that might disturb your alignment, but the whole text will be contained in the cell itself, and it's not going to go into the next cell. But let's say we didn't want to do wrap text and we increased the cell width. Now let's say we want to give this section a heading. Attendance sheet. Let's say we call this an attendance sheet. As you can see, this is a big word and it does crash into the second cell. Yet we don't want to do a wrap text, because if we do a wrap text, it's going to make it look like this, which is not very conforming with the eyes and doesn't give a very neat look. But then again, we have this other option, merge and center as well. As you can see, this thing, this letter, I'm going to be using as my heading, and I don't like it because it's basically moving into two cells and it doesn't look nice. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a merge and center by selecting all these 4 cell blocks. When I do a merge and center, as you can see, it merges all those 4 cells, and the text I've inputted it gets to the center and looks very tightly and like a heading, instead of just sitting in the left-hand side and going over 2 or 3 cell blocks, and it gives a very neater and a nicer look. Now we can increase the size of the font here as well. As you can see, we can either use this button, increase font size, or you can manually select it from this scroll box and select the size you wish to have. Let's say we pick 20. And if you want to change the font, you can change the font from here. Select any font you want, and you can see it changing at the background. And whatever font you're happy with, you can just select it and it will change it directly. And now let's get to name, address, date of birth, and telephone. Let's say, okay, name, address, and date of birth. As you can see, a name will be just letters. Let's say this guy Joe, we give him 3 High Street, and date of birth 13/08/1985. Let's say, and telephone number also. As you can see, okay, over here we've got text, and over here we've got text and numbers, and over here we got a date. Now, and on this cell we have got a number. It's not a new, like a currency number or an accounting number. It's just a informative number, like a telephone number, but we would need to tell this to Excel so that it treats the cell and the other information on those cells accordingly. Let me show you how to format the cells individually or collectively. Let's say we're going to select this cell as we can see, we're going to put all the names down in this column. So what I'll do is, let's say I was going to put down 10 names. So I'm going to go up till 13 and select all these cells. Then I'm going to do a right click. Then I'll come down to format cells. When I come down to format cells, you can see these categories: general, number, currency, accounting, date, time, percentage, fraction, scientific, text, special, and custom. You'll be selecting one of these categories for whatever information you're putting in that cell, and that information should correspond to these categories. Let's say we can go general, or we can just put text. Both are the same and they both should be fine. Text, fine. Again, let's say we go on to 13, we're putting addresses. So we're not going to put text, as text will be just text. So we're going to use general, because in general we can use numbers and text. We're going to use general. Now, when we get to the date of birth, as you can see, we will drag down it again till 13 and right click. Now this is a date. We go back again to format cells. And over here, we're going to select date. Now, when you select date, it gives us the option to select how we want our date to be, how do we need it to be viewed on our sheets, and how it will basically make more sense and make working with a large number of data easier, let's say. That depends on the person. You can have a date in the format of numbers, or you can have 14 March 2012, whatever format you're going to use that will correspond to these cells, and it will change. Let's say we use 14 March 2020. You see the change, the date changed automatically, 15th of August 1985. Now we're going to jump onto the next cell, telephone, and we're going to select it again till 13, because like I said, I was going to add more 10 numbers. Okay, we click again on the right click, format cells. And now if we select number, we'll see a decimal point coming on front of it, which shows that, you know, because numbers are actual numbers and they can move into decibels as well, but this is not a decibel, this is a phone number. And you can see again, when we go into currency, it gives us the symbol for currencies and change it to a currency format, as you can see on the sample on top, 795, 662, 658, and the pound sign. So we can change it to any currency format as well from here. Then we get to accounting. Accounting will have a currency symbol as well, because accounts is all about finance and currencies and values. Date is not going to work here, as it's not a date, and it won't read it as a date as well. Again, time is not a time. Percentage, you can see fractions. Scientific is basically, it's gonna go into logarithms and integers. That's why it's got a 7.96e plus 0.8, that it's got 8 decimal points in front. And text won't read it, special and custom. Then again, what we'll do is we will keep it as number, let's say. But actually, let's do a thing. Let's keep it a general, because it's a telephone number, and we know it starts with an O, but the O0 is deleted because 0 doesn't exist before a number, and it has no value. So that's why the sheet has done that. But let's say now we want to edit it a bit more, want to make it a bit nicer and tighter. What we're going to do is we're going to give these columns a bit more spaces so that we can read the values more accurately and more friendly in a way. And what we do is, let's say now, as you can see, I've given these headings to this table, which I'm making right now, but I want to have let's say a boundary for the table. I want to have borders to see where the cell ends, where the cell starts, and depending how I want to view it. What I'm going to do, let's say I select the top section and I go to this section on here on the top, and you see go to a ribbon on top on the font section, you see a small button called borders. When you go onto borders, you can see it gives you option to apply a bottom border, just the top one, left one, right one, no borders at all, or all borders, left, right, top, center, or just outside borders. With an outside border, it won't have any inside borders. Let me show you how that works. If I do an outside border, you can see now this whole row is covered by a border, but you don't see any borders inside. Let me undo that and show you what the other bits do. Same as the outside tick border, tick outside border, it will just do a ticker border on the outside, nothing on the inside. But let's say you have a cell and you want to have a double bottom border. You can use this one or a tick bottom border. Again, these are the different styles you can use. Or if you want to do your own one on your own border, you can draw your own border and select what colors you want to use and the style of lines you want to use. You have a dotted line, space line, however you want to move. But let's say I want to do a border for the whole chart up till the cell 13, because that's where I'm going to input my entries into. And I want to do a border for all outside of this, just in case, so that I know where my chart starts and where my chart ends. So I'm going to click here, all outside borders. And as you can see, now I've got a border for all of the outside of this chart. And I'm going to have names till the 13th. Anyways, like I was editing the cells. I've undone it now. Now let me give you another view of making a chart. Let's say you've inputted the data up till 13 now, and you want to do a quick charting to Excel. And what would you do? Let's say you select all the data up to the last cell block with the headings on top, and you go to insert. When you go to insert, as you can see here, it says table. You click on table. Then over here, it's going to ask you to confirmation that these are the cells that we are covering, and are you sure your data is located in these cells? You can actually review it and look at it if you know how to read it, but I'll tell you how to read it as well. Again, yes. As you can see, it starts with equals to $A, $3, colon, $D, $13. That corresponds to is equal to A3, colon, D13. This is the cell block A3 on which we've put name in it. And this is the cell block D13. So it corresponds to A3 to D13, so that it has included all the cells in this section. Now, over here at the bottom, if you have headers, then you can click that, because as you can see, I've got name, address, date of birth, and telephone. If I didn't have it, then I would untag this, and then the table will create random column headers for me that I will be able to rename afterwards. But as I've got a header right now, let me show you what happens. As you can see, it has made my small chart into a nice styled chart, and you will be able to change the styling from here on the right section. If you click this arrow, it will open up all the different styles, light, medium, and dark. And as you scroll over them, it will change to show you how it looks and how it corresponds. And you can have it in any color, black and white, green, whatever colors you fancy. I normally stick with black and white with like light and dark lines so that it's easier to differentiate data and read it. Let's stick it here. Now, as you can see, we've got a chart pretty much made up now. All the chart is here, and we've got these scroll options on top. Now, once we have data filled in all these cells to the bottom, we can use these cells to, let's say, filter them out and get them from A to Z variant, or like, let's say, a numerical value higher to lower, descending or ascending level, however you want it, we can have our data visualized to us in that sense. But let's say we can see most of the text is aligned, this text is aligned to the left, yet this text is aligned to the right, and it doesn't look very neat and tidy. What we can do is change the alignment on these texts to see how they look in different settings. Let's go back to home. Now, as you can see, I've selected the whole chart so that, because whatever I do, I want a whole chart to duplicate it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to alignment section, and I'm going to look at these, align left, how it looks when I'm aligning my data to the left. And then I'm going to check how it looks when I align it to the center. And let's say if I want to see how it looks aligned to the right, as you can see, the left and right, it kind of pushes the data to the left and too much next to each other. If the previous cell is going to be filled in, or the next cell has got too much data, it will be kind of too close together. So I believe center alignment works better when you're reading a lot of data. Has anybody got any questions? Okay.
Hi, Ray, I'd like to just ask a quick question.
Yes.
You know, when you go back to the telephone number,
Yes.
I often have this issue because we receive sheets, or we have to create sheets where there's lots of information, lots of telephone numbers on there.
Yes.
And the one thing I find really, really annoying is where the complete number isn't on there, just like you were explaining.
Yes.
So what I do, and I don't know if this is correct or incorrect, but what I do to make sure the 0 stays on there is that I turn that into a text column.
Yes, you can.
Yeah. And then I find when you do that and you enter the 0, then it remains there.
Yes, it can be done, because then it will be just reading it as a normal text.
Okay, so is that wrong?
It's not wrong, but as you can see, it's giving me an error now over here.
Yeah.
Can you see the number in the cell is formatted as a text or preceded by an apostrophe? Do you see what happens? So you will start getting errors in your sheet that it will say, okay, you're doing this, but it doesn't work properly, or it's going to create errors in the future. There is one more workaround that I can give you. Let me show you. I'll format it as general again, or even as number.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm going to do is now, you see, actually, let me show you. You can do 440 and then keep it as general. Oh, it's too much.
Yeah, I think I prefer to keep it as the text and then try and work with the errors as they come along.
Oh, you want to work with errors, but that's fine. We can keep it as a text. And
I think the other thing that would be helpful to show delegates today is also when you need to, if you've got a column and you need to have the sequential number range going into there.
oh, okay, yeah, I'll get to that.
Yeah, if you could at some stage cover that, because I think that's a really helpful feature, and I still get confused on how best to do it when you have to like enter the first cell and second cell and then copy the second first, things like that.
Okay, let me show you a cool and
carry on
easy
and,
trick.
And then just thank you. Sorry.
No, it's fine. Okay, as Halim said, he wanted to add numbers to cells without doing it repetitively. Let me show you. Let's say on this sheet, I wanted to add numbers before the name section. Yeah. What I'm going to do is I'll highlight this column, right click, and I'll click insert. So you can see it's moved to the right hand side. Now this section becomes column A and everything moves on to column B. As Salim said, he wanted to numerically input everything, but he doesn't want to put all the numbers. Let me show you a cool trick. I put 1, I put 2, and I put 3, and I put 4. Now, as you can see, I've just put 4 numbers. I select these 4, and I just drag them down. Did you see that?
Yeah, that's a really helpful tool to remember how to do that.
You can, again, let's say I want to drag it down again to whatever. I just do that, it goes down. It will keep calculating. Basically what it does, it copies the formula before in the previous cells and then just duplicates it. Let's say if I had a formula saved in this cell that was working accordingly, then the same formula working over here, but on this row. So I would have, let's say, the formula in 4 cells, then if I needed to copy it to the bottom, I would do the same thing. Is that helpful? Does that make sense?
It does. And just very quickly, if you could maybe show it maybe on the date of birth, because it doesn't always work for everything you want to do. So if you do it on the date of birth, you'll see how it could go wrong as well if you copied that. Yeah. And then I'll leave you to it.
Date of birth will go wrong because what it's going to do is it's not going to read it as a date of birth. It's going to read a text before it. And let's say if I had a different date of birth below it, that's a data that is going to be different for every person. It's not going to follow a formula. Do you understand what I'm trying to tell you? Because let's say if you see me drag this down, it's just going to go 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, August. Because that's what it's reading. It's thinking it's just going on a date-wise format because it can't figure out a date of birth for a person. But let's say if you're talking about bringing down dates for, let's say, just anything, you want to have a whole column of every day's date, then you can use the formula and then break it down, but it won't work on date of birth. I'm sorry, it's not going to work on date of birth.
Sure. Thank you, Rahid.
No worries. Okay, Okay, has anybody got any more questions for this? Okay, I'll move on to the next one. Okay, this is just general data I just decided to put on to show you how we can have different kind of data represented in an Excel format. I've just put down, let's say, book sales per month from Jan to May, and I put genre. Now, what I want to do first is, let's say I want to make it into a chart. Like I just showed you right now, I'm going to select this whole section. And I'll go here and I'll click on table. Yes, my table has headers. Let me show you what happens. Let's say if I didn't have headers. Okay, like I said, there are no headers on this section. So what I go into here, I click into my table does not have headers. And then it gives me headers column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4, column 5. Now we can go into these text cells and we can change them to whatever we want. Like I do have basically headers. What I'm going to do is then unselect this. Select this whole section again, and then I'm going to insert a table. Yes, my table has headers. Well, it's got it done in the styling I wanted to, let's say. Cool. Now, as these sales, these are sales, these are in currency formats or accounting formats. So what I'll do is, like I showed you, you can format the cell by right-clicking and selecting all the data. And there is another way as well. You can go into this box saying number, and then click on here, select it from here. Number, currency, or accounting. As these got currency signs, we'll use currency because we're talking about sales. Right. Now, as you can see now, our data has been filled into the chart. And what I'm going to show you now is how to display it in a chart format. Now we're going to get a table. So we select this, and then we go into charts. I'm going to show you column charts first. When you hover it, it reads the data and it will show you the chart at the bottom. As you can see, it's a 2D column chart. And if you look at the chart below, you can see Jan, Feb, March, April, May in the legend. At the bottom, blue for January, orange for February, gray for March, yellow for April, and May is blue. And then these figures and the bars show you the corresponding sales for that month, depending on the category. Now, let's say we wanted to do a different bar, a 3D one. As you can see, it changes. It's the same chart, but it goes into a 3D format so that it's a better version. And let's say we wanted to do a sidebar. This way, it's the same format, but it's to swap the axes. As you can see, the book genres are on the left axis, and at the bottom axis, we've got figures at the bottom. So that is dependent on how and what and how you want your chart to look like. And you can edit it in different ways in your formats. Let's pick any chart. Let's pick a 3D chart. As you can see now, I've got this chart in front of me, and all these bars are the sales bars. Let's say this gray bar over here was the romance and sales in March. And you can see it has 85,456. I think I accidentally put an extra number. Let me just bring it down a bit. Yeah, that's one. Okay. Yes. As you can see, when I select this gray bar from March, it highlights this section of the chart. As you can see, it responds that all these relate to these figures. Like 8545 is for romance, and it's located here. And then let's say we want to look at April. Again, just April is highlighted as a yellow chart, and you can see how much we sold in romance in April, in mystery, in sci-fi, and thriller. So we can look at it and see, okay, in April we had higher sales in romance, but mystery suffered, sci-fi suffered, and thriller was high as well in April. This gives us an idea what works on April and what doesn't work in April. Let's say we want to change something in it. We want to change the, let's say, the style of the chart. So as you can see, the brush style over here, this gives you a different view into what kind of different charts can still work with your things, data. You can see if you scroll down, it gives you the funny chart, more professional ones, more automated ones. This with like too much information as well. As you can see, some of them can be crowded and it might be difficult to read in them as well. And some of them can be very dry and they can give you too less of information and not convey the message you're trying to convey. So basically, it will depend on what point you're trying to get across and what seems to be the main point that you want to discuss on your chart. With a dark chart, maybe somebody wants to look at things that are different, higher contrast, works in that sense as well. Let's see. And let's say if you want to edit the title, so we can just select this pre-fill boxes and we can edit it as we go along. Book sales. Let's say we want to filter out a few bits, and let's say we don't want to look at all of the months. We just wanted to look at January. So you can see the filter icon on next to the chart on the right side. I'll come here. I can deselect every bit, every month, and then I can just select January. Apply, and you can see now I'm just looking at January and I can see, okay, how much each genre made in January. But let's say I want to do a Jan and Feb comparison, then I select Feb. I click apply, then I can see, okay, let's say we can see sci-fi struggled in January, but sci-fi sales boomed in Feb. Thriller and like thriller for Jan and Feb is similar, but still February was a good month for thriller instead of romance and mystery when they saw basically drop, but it's technically romance should have been higher in Feb. Perfect. And okay, let's select all the months and let's say we just want to do a comparison between romance and sci-fi. So we go select romance and sci-fi and then again, boom. Then we can see the 5-month sales for two categories, romance and sci-fi. Romance boomed in April and it tanked in Feb. And sci-fi boomed in March and it tanked in April and Jan. So this way we can just do a comparison between two genres or spread over different months, or if you wanted to do it 2 months spread over different genres, we can do that as well. Has anybody got any more questions? I'll show you line charts next. Okay, so you can see 2D line charts, and when we click on it, it's going to show you how and in what way it's going to represent your data, and you can select the one that corresponds most to the thing you're working on. It's a 3D chart, 2D area chart, and a 3D area chart. I think 2D lines work best as they can see more in them. I don't want to confuse you a lot. So let's say I will select a simple line chart to see as how sales have affected for different books and genres. You can see. Okay. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys how to switch the columns as well, just in case, let's say you want to move the months to the left axis and you want to figures on the bottom axis, you might need it depending on the chart you're doing, because sometimes different axes work on different charts. So let me show you. As you can see on the data side on the design, there's a section that says switch row or column data. If you click on it, it will switch, as you can see. It has switched the months on top and romance and bottom at the bottom. And it has given the legend coloring to, like I said, blue romance. You can see how romance sales went across January, February, March, April, and May. Let's say we want to move all the rest of the books. And this is a representation of how romance sales were starting from the year till May. And it gives a very clear indication that romance sales were increasing after Feb till April, but something affected them and they've been taking a downturn. But let's say we want to compare with something else. Let's say we pick mystery. Now, mystery sales are following romance sales exactly in the same trend line, but it is still higher. Mystery is selling higher than romance, but it's following the same trend line. There's a fall in romance, so there's a fall in mystery sales as well. So this can be something to look for if you're trying to figure out why the sales are down. Depends how you want to look at your data. Let's say now we get rid of romance, and when we just do sci-fi and thriller, again, we can see these charts correspond similarly as well. They pick up similarly, so we can see trends that are similar in these two markets and genres. So there must be something corresponding to these, and that is something to look into. Any more questions? Okay.
I seem quite in the chat panel today, Rahib, so I think you're doing well.
Okay, I'm going to show you another chart, and that's called a pie chart. Let me just do this one. Pie charts is located here in the chart section, and I'm sure all of us are aware of pie charts. So we've got option of 2D pie charts, 3D pie charts, and a donut. I will stick to a simple 2D pie chart just to convey my point. As you can see, this pie chart is firstly just for January right now. And for January, it's got even a breakdown of how and how much we were selling as a proportion of the pie. And you can see thriller of the highest percentage. No, sorry, yeah, thriller was the highest percentage, followed by mystery, then romance, and then sci-fi for January. And this gives a breakdown just for January. Let's say we want to look at February, so we click on the filter button over here, and then let's say we move on to Feb, we click on Feb, and then it gives us the breakdown of Feb for the next month and see what was the breakdown and which was the highest sales and the lowest sales in that category. So we can see again, thriller was dominating February, followed by sci-fi, then mystery, and then romance. And then let's look at March. We click on March and then we click apply. Again, we can see romance followed by sci-fi, followed by thriller, and followed by mystery. So that is another way to look at data. And I think this might be easier compared to the rest of the charts, but the rest of the charts convey more meaning and more message to them. Has anybody got any more questions on the charts? Okay, let's move on to formulas. I'm gonna explain you how we can use different formulas on Excel, as Excel is a workable program, so we can type in whatever we want to and what we want to do it. So I'm going to start with some basic mathematical formulas so that you guys can work your way up and practice them a lot. Okay, as you can see, if I look at row 5, I've got January, February, March, April, and May. I've got 5 months over here. And let's say I want to look at a total of just romance for these 5 months. So let's say I come on to box H5. What I do is I put in copy sign over here. As you can see, it comes over here on the top. This is the formula bar where you will be able to edit your formula and tweak it easily. Let's say I'll start very basically in the most manual manner. And then I'm going to show you how you can do it automatically as well. But I believe you need to know how to do it manually, just in case when things go wrong, you won't be able to fix them otherwise. So let's say I come on, I select B5. As you can see, it is selected B5. Then I can simply add a plus sign. That's simple for addition. Then I select the second cell. Then I can another plus sign. Then I select the third one. Again, a plus sign. Then I select April. Then again, a plus sign. Then I select May. Now, once I selected May, I can just press enter and you can see it will give me a total of that amount because I've just added the figures in B5, C5, D5, E5, and F5. And let's say if I want to double check, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these rows from B5 to F5. And you can see at the bottom, it shows me the figure. shows me the sum of all these boxes. So I can double check if my formula is working correctly or not. Now, let me show you another way how to calculate it. Again, we're going to put an equals to sign, and I'm going to do sum. That's a formula, sum as in addition, open bracket, B3, column, oh, sorry, B5, B5, column, F5. This will pick up all the cells from B5 to F5. And as I put the sum function before it, it knows it's going to add cell number B5 till F5. Once I close the bracket, I'm just going to press enter. Again, I get the same answer. Is that clear with everyone? Or has anybody got any questions? Okay, now I'm going to show you how to do it automatically. As you can see, editing on this side on the top ribbon, there's a section called auto sum. You can click on auto sum, and again, it does a similar function. Right now, what it does is because it's got no data above it, it's got all the data previous to it, and it can sense there are numbers in these rows. And by, let's say, on the column A, there are no numbers, that's a letter. It will pick column from row B till G because it's on column H. So anything before column H is going to pick it up and add it up. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to press enter, but I do want to make sure it's picking up the correct row, just in case it picks up any other cell that I don't want it to pick. I click enter again. Again, I get the same answer. Okay, let's do a thing. Now, since romance, I want to see how much I made in January. What I'll do is I can come over here, click on auto sum. You can see it automatically adds up the column B up to Jan, and I get this figure. Then again, I jump onto Feb. I can click on auto sum, and we get the whole sum for that column up till C5. Same over here. Again, see, this is why you would need to be careful, like I was telling you before. When I went on to the column D and clicked on auto sum, it started picking up the two previous cells from it, and that is not what we're looking for. So what I'm going to do is I'll click over here, not letting go of my click. I'll drag it to the bottom to this section 8. So basically D5 to D8, I'm going to select it, and then I'm going to let go. And I just click enter again, it just adds it up. And if I want to double check my calculations, like I said, I can just select these cells, check at the bottom. Excel will automatically calculate whatever you're selecting, and you will get the answer 22521, which corresponds with the cell again. I can see, yep, everything's working fine. Again, when I click on here, you see the formula picks up the cells previous to it again, but I wanted to calculate these ones. So again, I'll select this section, click enter, done. Now, let's see. Again, I want to do this. See, just be careful. Select here, done. Now, I'm going to show you how to do an average function. An average is basically we're just getting the mean average of a number of cells to give us an idea of what the average amount in those cells are. So let's say I want to know the average I made in this past 5 months. So I've got these totals for every month. And let's say I will do, let's say, a top and take bottom border, just to show that these are totals. As you can see now, it looks like total, and I can put a total. Now I want to look at what the average monthly sale was over these 5-month period. Let's say I put average in. Then again, I put an equals to sign because I'm going to be putting a formula over here. I'm going to put a average open bracket like we did previously. As we have open bracket, we're going to select this cell and not letting go of the click. We're going to drag it there. As you can see, it adds a B12 to F12. I can manually enter it as well. Let's say B12 column F12. It picks up those cells, and then all I need to do is close the bracket. Now my cells are locked in with the formula of average. I just need to press enter. Voila, 18,871.80. And let's say I want to check it again. Excel does a couple of things. It counts the cells, it adds the cell, and gives you an average. So let's say I select these cells again. And over here at the bottom, you can see average. It shows me 18,871.80, which corresponds to this level again. Shows me 5 cells have been selected, and if I add them all up, it's 94,359 pounds. Any questions?
No, it sounds all good, Rahib.
Perfect. Okay, let me show you another function now. It's called pivot tables. Pivot tables work with quite a lot of data, and I'll just put in random things over here so I can show you what I'm talking about. If you have a big spreadsheet that if you're recording everything and it's got months and months of data, it's sometimes not feasible to go over every section, every cell, and basically just check everything out. So sometimes you need to collate things and, concise them so that you can make good decisions and quick decisions instead of just going over data again and again. So let's say this is just a random data I've created for, let's say, some salespeople who are selling in 4 different regions, random amounts and over different time periods. As we can see, this is just bare data. What I'm going to do is I need to convert it to something readable and something editable in the sense that it makes more sense. So again, I'm going to start with converting it to a chart. Again, I select the whole data table. My table has headers, as I've already given headers to it. Then again, I can move things into the middle. This way it's easier. The amount section, I know these are currency amounts, so I'm going to change it to currency, month, region, and salesperson. I can leave these things as because they are just text. Now, what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to select this whole chart up till here. Once I've selected the chart, I'm going to move on to insert. And you can see pivot table on top. You would need to click here. Once you click here, you can see select the table or range. It's already selected table 4 because I've got it selected. At the bottom, it's going to ask you, do you want to create your pivot table on a new worksheet or the existing worksheet? If you want to create it on an existing worksheet, you would need to click on this section, existing worksheet, and select the cell from somewhere around here on this sheet that is open right now. If you wanted to have, if you want it on the same sheet as your data, but let's say if you want to create it on a new blank worksheet and play around with it, you just leave it here, you click OK, and then it will create a new sheet, sheet 4, as you can see at the bottom, and your screen will look a bit like this, with your headers coming onto here, and then 4 sections over here: filters, columns, rows, and values. Okay, let's say we wanted to see how much each salesperson made. So we select salesperson. Okay, another thing is whatever data is in your sheet, the pivot tables are going to pick it up. As you can see, there was a blank row in my original sheet. Over here, this one, it's picking up a blank one. So let's say I want to go back and I delete this one. So there is no blank sheet over here. I need to come here, right click, refresh. So you can see the blank section is gone. So I've got no salesperson with a blank name. And I've got Ben, Kate, Lucy, and Sean. Let's say. Now, I want to check how much amount they're making. So I click on amount moves into values. Now, sum of amount, you can change it as well. Let's say you can have a count, average, minimum, maximum, other bit, but let's say you want a total amount. So we just click on sum and we leave it here. As we select sum, then it shows what Ben, Kate, Lucy, and Sean have totaled for the information we hold on them. So these are the whole amounts we can see. Ben has made the most, then Sean, then Lucy, and then Kate. But let's say we didn't want to see salesperson. We wanted to see how much each region made. Let's say. So we click on region. Now we can see east, north, west, and south. All these 4 sections, and we can see how much, what amount relates to which section and what. But let's say we wanted to do a salesperson per month. Now, if let's say I click on month and the month moves into rows, but as you can see, the data can be a bit more convoluted. So what I'll do is I'll move months into columns. As you can see now, we can see the data in a bit more readable format, but sometimes you might need to edit the alignment as well. It might change the alignment depending how big of a amount of words it's putting in there. So let's say January, February, January, March, May. Oh, it's February. February over here, January, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, February. So let's say we can look at it. Kate didn't have any sales from June till September, and Lucy and Sean didn't have any sales from August to September. We can see they didn't work this month, or they were sick, or whatever the reason was. And then per month as well, we can see this data, what and who and how much sales each and every person made per month with the grand total as well. But let's say we change it again to region. We drag region to column, and then we can put the salesperson on row. Then again, we can see how much East made, how much North made, South made, West made. And as you can see, all these people are just working per one territory. So it's just going to be on one territory. Lucy made in the East, Kate made in the South or North, Ben was active in the West, and Sean was active in the South. Has anybody got any questions? Okay. Oh. Now, what we can do is, let's say, if you keep adding more data to this sheet, let's say I want to add more Ben. As soon as I enter Ben, it takes Ben into the chart and extends the chart. So let's say if I keep adding more data for Ben, it will go into the pivot table as well. Let's add another sale for 550. For, let's say, August. And yeah, let's say we go back to the sheet 4 and we want to see amounts again. So we just move amounts into sum, and you can see Ben 5276, and then we refresh it. As you can see, Ben has changed now. It has taken the amount we've just inputted in and has increased the amount for Ben. Has anybody got any questions?
No, it seems still quiet on the chat. I'm finding it quite helpful myself. We come across these issues all the time, and the important thing is that it can be used for personal things as well as business related. So we just need to be mindful of how we can benefit from what we're watching in both our lives as well.
Salim, can you repeat that? You broke up a bit. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying, we find this quite helpful because we use this quite often, but I was just saying for the benefit of the participants who we're on today, that, what you're learning today or what we're showing today can also be used in the personal life. So it's not all business related, just trying to show the concept of how we can manipulate data and show it in a different format and make it more presentable.
Yes, because at the end of the day, if people are recording data and spreadsheets, it is quite good and it's easy to record, but it doesn't give you the tool, and it doesn't present itself in a very readable format. It doesn't connect the dots you might be looking to connect, and it can be very overwhelming when you start working on spreadsheets and they keep going bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, I know it is. I mean, it sounds rather sad, but we used Excel for home use as well. So we use it when we've got like all these different bills that are going to be paid out over the year, or we've got a different subscription for our mobile phones or our internet and things like that. So we try and use it and present it in an Excel sheet, so it helps us to see over the year
how much you've spent,
how much we can spend, where we can save money, where we can budget, where the next payment's coming out.
Yes.
And it sort of helps just to manage your money a bit better as well. So we use it as a budgeting tool as well.
It works fine because let's say in this example, instead of let's say sales, let's say we can take this as wages would have been paid to these people for those month amounts. Let's say if I change this to wages, it becomes a different kind of exercise completely. Now, let's say this is the summary of wages we have paid them, and let's say over which month we paid them what. So you can see, you will be able to tell, okay, who was paid what amount in which month, and contrast. Let's say if you see Ben was paid highest in August, but before that Ben was paid 254, 658, 455, or 445, 356. So that way, let's say if you just looked at August, you might think he was paid a lot of money in August, you know, that's not the norm or whatever. But let's say if you look at the data previously as well, it will tell you maybe he wasn't working enough, or something happened, he was off or whatever. That's why maybe he tried to pick up his hours in August. Same for, like, let's say if you look at it, 856, these ones, Sean ones, these figures, we can see they keep going on top of it. But let's say they fall down in July. We can see in July we had a fall for Ben and Sean, and previously we can see April and May. So we can see April, May, June, July, these 4 months do take a hit, and we might be able to see, okay, what actually happens in these 4 months, because we can see them stand out compared to the rest of the period. Okay, let's man wages as well. Okay, another thing you can do is, let me show you. Use charts from pivot tables, but you will need to be very careful, because if your pivot table is a bit more too complicated, it can mess up the chart. Let's say, because I'm just focusing on 2 variables right now, the people, the salespeople, and their wages. So it's easier to look at a pie chart. If you look at it, let's say it will just show us the breakdown, who made what, how high, and what. Same for, let's say, column chart in that sense. But let's say I come in here, then I can deselect salesperson again here, and then I can go back to drag region down to access category. As you can see, as soon as I drag it, it changes the bottom axis, and it goes on to the regions instead of the salesperson, and it shows me the total on top of it as well, how much each made depicted in a chart format. So you can use pivot tables to jump onto a chart as well. Once your pivot table is working fine, you can translate it into a chart. Any more questions?
Just put one in the chat for you.
Oh, let me show you. Oh, perfect. Okay, let's say I can see if my sheets are a bit over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag it here, sheet 1. I'm not leaving it up. Just clicked on it, dragging it here, sheet 2, sheet 3, sheet 4. Let's say I want to rename them. So what I need to do is right click, rename. And let's say R1, done. 2. R4. But let's say I want to delete a sheet. So let's say I created a sheet 5, which I don't need anymore. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to right click on it, click delete, and it's gone. And let's say you wanted to completely erase a sheet. So what I can do is I can do Control A, that select the whole sheet, right click, clear contents, or you can delete as well, but it doesn't delete the formatting. You would need to be careful with that. Coloring, yes.
I'm not sure if that option's available, but I just thought, just looking at it now on the screen, it would be helpful if they might have a different color tab. It's just a suggestion. I don't know if it's possible or not.
It is. Give me a second.
And don't worry if it's a bit long-winded.
Would need to, because normally you would need to color it when you have a lot of sheets going on in an Excel.
Okay, that it'd be fine, right? Leave that one.
I should leave them. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Any more questions?
Just a final one also from myself.
Okay, go on.
We find it quite helpful to insert our logo onto a sheet as well.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, we find it quite helpful to insert our logo onto
Okay.
the sheet. So could you maybe show how to insert maybe like a logo or image or something like that that's not on the standard tabs at the top?
Okay, I will just show you
Thank
with
you.
the same image I downloaded yesterday. Might not look good, but it's saved on my desktop. It's just a Google icon I basically downloaded. Let me just open one of the page where it will fit nicely. Okay, let's say I'm just I've got a picture open, so it's just saved on my desktop, which I'm going to drag onto this spreadsheet. So I'm just dragging it over here, as you can see. That's it. Okay, there's another way. You will go into insert pictures and click on this device. You click on this device. Let's this one. And as you can see, it inserts the picture, but as you can see, this picture is quite big right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shrink it down a bit to size of a logo. And Excel does have interesting ways that it can remove the background. I've just removed all the background from this picture using Excel. Now, as you can see, it does come up as a logo. Now, let's say I needed kind of here somewhere. So what I can do is I can drag it here, make space for the logo, and just leave it there. Then afterwards, whatever I do, I will do that below that so that it doesn't affect that cell. And I can let it bring it down back again a bit. And select it. I'll just put this here so I can try to make it a bit like is that okay?
Yeah, that's perfect. I didn't even know you could do that. So hopefully it's something new as well.
I know a lot of people use Photoshop to remove backgrounds, but you can do it on Excel.
Yeah, because normally when you put an image to remove the background, that's normally another cost as well.
Yes.
So just knowing that that can be done on there, it's really, really helpful. So thanks for that.
No worries. Perfect. Has anybody got any more questions?
So we're going to be wrapping this session up today then. If you have any questions, by all means, do put them into the chat, or you can still contact us outside of this workshop as well. So is there anything that anybody would still like covering in this session in the next few minutes, or any questions they've got, any issues or challenges they're finding with Google Sheets? And like I said, I've learned something new as well. So we're always learning, and it's really important. And it's important that you ask questions in sessions like this, because no question is a silly question. We're all here to learn. We're all here to make things easier, quicker, and faster. And when you learn like this, it's one thing. When you go away from here and try to do it yourself, that's when you realize, oh, I can't quite remember what I had to do, what steps I have to take. So it's all about practicing and trying things out and making these mistakes. But like I said, we are here for you. You have our email address. You can contact us at any stage as you're starting to use it. And also, we'll make the recording available as well. So we need to do a few edits. So all the workshops we have delivered, we will be making them available, and then we'll contact you directly by email and just give you the link as to where you can download the webinars, the recordings for this workshop, and all the others that you're missing. And we've got about another 4 or 5 lined up all the way till Christmas as well. We've got 3 next week, 3 very exciting ones. So please do go back onto Eventbrite, where you will see the list of courses, workshops that we've got available. So I'd just like to say thank you very much for joining today. I hope that was beneficial, and look forward to catching up with you very shortly if there's no other questions. Thank you very much, everybody. Bye-bye for now.